Welcome, friends. Today we'll start the unit 2, that is understanding customer requirements through research, right? So, in this unit, we'll study the reasons for gap 1, that what are the reasons, and also we'll try to study the relationship marketing and services. How important is that, and why is it, relationship marketing is required, and what are the strategies basically the companies can adopt to retain the customers. So, friends, we'll start the journey. So, the unit name: Understanding Customer Expectations Through Market Research. So this is the what, right? We are, I think I was telling you in the unit 1, okay, there are 4 gaps: gap 1, gap 2, gap 3, gap 4. Out of that 4 gaps, we'll start looking into the gap 1, and what are the reasons that this gap is, they existed. So you can spend some few seconds on the slide in trying to understand the gap 1. Gap 1 happens, as I briefly told you in the unit 1, is mainly because of the customer expectations and how basically the company will perceive the customer expectations. So why this happens, that also I have discussed with you in the previous class. Key customer will always tell their expectations through the sentences. That's a qualitative data, right? I think if you remember, I have taken the example of a bike and a restaurant. So somebody says which type of a bike you want. If you ask somebody, might say that I want a bike which is very powerful, and at the same time it should be fuel efficient. That's how the customer says. And maybe if you ask somebody how should be the restaurant ambience, they say ambience should be good. They may say ambience should be mast rehna chahiye. Right? So what is that? What is that good? Right? So where all the service providers, not only the service providers, even in the product manufacturing also, we need to define these customers' qualitative statements or the sentences into the product specifications and the service specifications. That's the service design. How should I design my service? So that is where the very crucial part. I think you might be remembering I was referring to some concept called QFD, quality function deployment in total quality management. That's what they say. It's a beautiful matrix, right? So where it transforms these customer qualitative statements into quantitative data. That means the product specifications. It transforms those statements, like I want a bike which is powerful and at the same time it shouldn't consume much fuel. So this will be converted in the form of specifications. If that difference exists, then the gap 1 comes. So you can look at the slide, right? So why is this really happens? There are 4 reasons, the main reasons why this happens. Why is that any service organization will fail to, understand or the way customer want their expectations to be understood by the company. Perceive, right? How basically I perceive as a service provider. So they have listed these 4 main reasons. Brief of these reasons I have already told in the unit 1. Let us look into that again one by one. Right. So first reason what they say, and the title of this topic, the unit, is because inadequate market research orientation. All right. So for service firm might have the marketing research, the arrangements, but not focused in the right manner, right? So not focusing on the service quality, service design, or whatever is the required, right? Or might be I am not. I don't believe as a company, right? I don't believe much in marketing research because there are incidences, right? So where the researchers have proven wrong, or might be the entrepreneur will have that gut feeling. I know well, right? So since I have been there in the business from so many years, I know my product very well, and I know my customers very well, and I know my market very well. Maybe I may not require that kind of a marketing research effort in order to know what exactly the customer expects, right? So that's where you find, what you can say, the short sight of the management, and not much, a focus on doing marketing research itself. And along with that, when we are doing not focusing on the quality of the service, right? So where we fail to understand how do we or how are we performing in the market, right? So what is our quality of service when we compare with the other services? And I use very less marketing research. That's what I said, right? So myself is being an entrepreneur, right? So from 20 years, 50 years, I'm there, right? So nothing has happened to me. And now I know this is all 15 years I have spent in talking to customers, meeting the intermediaries, understanding what they want and all. Might be I might not use to whatever the required level of the research. That leads to uh, inappropriate understanding of the customer expectations, right? So what I exactly I may fail. Might be there might be a vague the things that might they really happen there. Then second part is the lack of upward communication. This is very vital, as I have been telling even in the first unit also, that this frontline, the employees or the employees who are interacting with the customers are the key here. They are the very crucial, the people, right? They are the link between customer and the company, because no customer meets the manager or maybe the board of directors or vice presidents. It's all those people, right? It's all those people who are rendering the services to the customers. It's all those people who interact on a day-to-day basis, on an hourly basis with the customers. And how are we creating an organizational culture in the organization so that I can motivate, or all my front end executives are highly motivated to give the feedback to the management or to their immediate the supervisors or the bosses, right? I failed in creating. Maybe if the customers are not sorry, not customers, the employees are not motivated, and they are not happy with the happenings in the company. Maybe they might feel that, "अरे यार, why should I want this, अरे मुझको क्यों चाहिए ये सब," right? Let me come here, the work for whatever they pay and go, right? और maybe somebody might say that, okay, ये लोग ये इतना ही सैलरी देते हैं, मैं इतना ही काम करूंगा, और जो भी मैं काम कर रहा हूँ वो सैलरी के लिए बहुत ज्यादा है. These are all the words, right? Where we can they think, and where we can judge that the right culture is not being built up in the organization. They are the front end executives, and they are the people who are interacting with the customers, and that's what it's required, right? So lack of upward communication, whatever might be the reason might be lack of motivation, lack of coordination, lack of the culture, or whatever it is, right? So that makes the company to fail in understanding what exactly the customer wanted, or there might be insufficient communication between the employees and the managers, and a lot of hierarchy. I think you all witnessed maybe in other subjects how the communication changes, or how if there are more people where communication is to be passed on, right? So one thing will become the other thing. Finally, it reaches the top management, right? Front end executive might say something. So in the hierarchy, there is a front end executive, there is a supervisor, there is a manager, there is a unit head, there is a regional managers, assistant regional managers, general managers, then vice presidents. Goes like this. By the time it reaches the top, might be you might find the information is you know information is turned the way the people wanted it. That I can modify the information the way I wanted it. If the front end executive says the hard reality of the customer feeling, If the manager doesn't likes it, or somebody who is there in between the hierarchy doesn't likes it, maybe he will modify that information according to his requirements. That's one of the reason, right? So where you have a lot of the hierarchies, a lot of people in between, where it are there before the information reaches to the person to whom it is supposed to be reached, right? So then third one, insufficient the relationship focus. In that we can see that lack of market segmentation, right? I have not divided. What is segmentation, right? Segmentation is dividing the market into the customers who behave in a similar manner for any of the marketing stimuli, or we can say that it's a slice of the market which behaves in a similar manner for any of the stimuli that the company gives it for a particular segment. Maybe I might have failed it, right? So all segments are not same in the behavior and the approach, and maybe I'm based on my relationships rather on transactions rather than the relationship building, right? So when the customer enters the service firm, it all depends the way the executives or the frontline people talk with them, right? So whether how much they are concerned with the customers, so that shows whether the company is orienting the employees in relationship building or in transaction building. And you all know that these transactions will never over, right? It will be over as soon as the transaction is completed, but the relationship continues. If we are if the service provider or if the employee with whom the customer interacts is so courteous, the smiling and involvement, right? He shows that we care for you. If he is unable to build that kind of a relationship, then that will be a transaction only. There is no relationship point in that. But if the company is failing in that, then I might fail somewhere in understanding the customer expectations. And the other one, what you can see, the company philosophy, right? So the I search for new customers rather than building the relationship with the old customers or retaining the old customer. This left with the company, right? It's always say that, right? So earning a new customer is very difficult, or I say that retaining existing customer is 10 times better than gaining a new customer. It's like a proverb. What it says, known devil is better than unknown angel. I know the devil, so it's better to live with him, right? I know what devil does, what it does, where it goes, what it eats, everything I know. But there is an angel, right? So I don't know anything about the angel, right? Angel is the new customers. I don't know. Devils are the existing customer. I know my customers. That means I know my customers. Angel is there, but new customers are there, but I don't know the new customers, right? Their behaviors, attitudes, I don't know much about it. So it's a company philosophy how basically the companies will focus, right? So that's on focusing on new customers rather than relationships. But nowadays, maybe most of the organizations realized that retaining the old customers is far better idea than going for new customers. There is a bucket theory. I'll tell that in the next video. What is that bucket theory, right? If the holes are more in the bucket, I think you need to pour in that much of water to fill always the bucket full. So that's where you find inefficient relationship focus. The last one, inadequate service recovery, right? This is where everywhere happens. If the company listens also, might be you find the company which give a better complaint handling, the services, or the company which is having a better complaint handling system in their company, which will survive. And of course, and obviously, those companies will be having more loyal customers. Of course, mistakes happens. I think we have seen in the last model in case of zone of tolerance also. There is always a difference. Maybe at times the company might go below your the adequate level of services. Fine, that might happen. That will happen because there are human beings who are delivering the services in most of the services. But how do you recover it? That makes the difference between the company who says I care for you to the customers, or that's the difference between the successful and unsuccessful companies. How am I, or how have I created the recovery handling systems, right? Maybe some companies will listen, right, and they do get more time to come back to that complaint and correct it. But still, worst is some companies won't listen properly to the customers, even though it's a company mistake. I mean, everything might be put upon the customer only. So, no, 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 it may not be our mistake, right? And maybe I might fail in amending when the things go wrong from the company side. So always, you are one-sided, and always you are trying to defend yourself rather than listening, right? They say that, right? Well listened is 50% problem is solved. If you're able to listen your customers properly, showing the appropriate the care and appropriate courteousness, right, then 50% of their problem is been solved. Maybe that customer might go out of your service system in the happy mood. At least somebody's listened, company is listened at least, right? So once when you listen, and maybe at times you find it, you are failing to make the amendments to make the things which went wrong correct, right? And no appropriate recovery mechanisms in place for service failures. That's what, right? So no the proper, no proper service recovery systems is been built in the company, right? All these are the reasons, right? So which makes or which creates the first gap in case of services. So as we have seen, and I said, right, so these are some of the objectives in services where we do the research. So I think you can go through that. Maybe you can spend some time on this. First might be understanding customer requirements or expectations. Then most important is to monitor and track the service performance. How am I doing in the market? It is not only the understanding. Once you deliver, you track your performance. Then might be I wanted to assess the overall company performance compared with the competitors, and let me assess, is there any gap if they are between the customer expectations and the perceptions. Maybe identify dissatisfied customer. That's very good, because one dissatisfied customer might spoil 10 customers. That's what they say. If customer goes out unhappy from your service firm, there is every chance that he might block you know another 10 customers who will be visiting your service firm. That's the reason they say to identify, and how can we recover the service. Then maybe effectiveness of the changes that you have made in service delivery. Then to appraise the service performance of individuals and teams for evaluations. Then might be something to do with again customer expectations for new service if you have designed a new service. Then monitor changing customer expectations in the industry. What is that really the customers are wanting it, right? So maybe all these expectations will not remain constant, keeps on changing with the time, and with the age, and there's so many things. And these are the few the objectives, common objectives on which the marketing research in case of services is being done, right? Then how should be your research program should be creative enough. They say that your research must include both qualitative and the quantitative research, and it also includes, that's what we say about the gap one. It also must include both customer expectations and perceptions. And the third most important thing is that it has to balance, right? Maybe I can't, me as a company, right, I cannot go there just doing the research, research, and research, because something that we need to look for what kind of a research am I doing and what is the value of the information, right? Some information which is coming out in the form of your day-to-day sales report, then there is no need for us to go for extensive marketing research, right? Because everything is a cost, right? It involves the money, time, effort, and you need to wait for making the decisions. I should compare what is the value of the information I'm getting and what kind of a decision am I making. If I'm making a strategic decisions which is having company-wide implications, which is having whole customer-wise and market-wide implications, then maybe I should be going for the research. Otherwise, if there are any tools, right? So day-to-day information, that's what is coming through the frontline executives. If that is enough, maybe I may not be, going. That's the reason we say that cost of the research is one of the criteria because we all know that it's very difficult to manage the yield in services marketing, as you know that here services once the capacity lost is lost forever. I cannot bring back the capacity again. So there should be a trade-off, cost and the value of the information, or the cost and the type of the decision what I make in that particular research, right? And I should also provide a statistical validity whenever it is required or whenever it is being asked. And priorities I need to measure, then I should be doing this with the appropriate frequency. When do I do this? When did I did this in the last time? Right. So that's where I need to think here, right? So which time is appropriate to do the research, right? And it has to include loyalty, maybe the intentions, or knowing the customer behaviors. These are the few of the criteria where where your research program will be success. Now let us look into some of the types. As I told you in the previous slides, maybe the first type might be the customer complaint solicitation. Right? I want to conduct a research to identify dissatisfied customers to attempt the recovery. And maybe I might find that which are the common categories of the services that fail and which component of the services that fail, and I can take the appropriate measures for correcting it. The maximum number of the failures, maybe I'm going to adopt for ABC analysis, right? So maybe we know that, right? So 70% of the things that happens because of the 10% of the causes, right? Then the second one is relationship surveys, as we know that, right? Service performance is compared to competitors. Maybe here I will be identifying service improvement priorities and service important improvement over the period of time. Then the next type of the research is the post transaction surveys. This is all about the customer have experienced your research, your service, and I am taking the feedback. Maybe many of the companies will do this. Maybe all the automotive automotive dealers will do that, or any gadget service providers will do that. Once you get your automobile repaired or serviced, maybe the call will come to rate the service of that particular automobile dealer. Hope all of us have witnessed this and participated in the survey also. Okay, so the next is customer focus group, right? For anything, uh, where I call a few customers whom I feel expert, and there will be a moderator. With the help of the moderator, I'll be doing the research. You know, Asking those the 8 to 10 members in the group to contribute on in a particular topic or the area of the research. Then mystery shopping of service providers. Right. So here I do go for mystery shopping. Fine. Then employee service, as you know that in services marketing triangle, right? So internal marketing. That means first thing that should be sold is to be sold for your employees because they are the sellers, right? Unless and until I make my employee convinced about my services, and I cannot expect that. So, in order to know that, the pulses, what exactly the employees, the fields, right? So, what are their problems they are facing to improve the service, and what is that morale and attitude? Because these people are very important, right? So, it's intangible product that you are selling, and it depends on how basically your employees are ready to render it, or they give it to the customers the way they wanted it. There might be the lost customer research. Might be. It is inevitable, right? Some of the customers we are, we bound to lose, and I'll find the reasons why I lost these customers. And might be the last thing will be the future expectations of the research, right? So, uh, how can I develop the new product development, right? So, new services. How do I develop? Okay, the research uh, types that you find it. I think this I'll not be focusing much because you've had a full paper in your second semester called research methods, research methodology, business research methods, so many names. And that's the process remains same whether you do the marketing research of the product or the marketing research of the services or marketing or the research of any kind of thing. The basic process remains same. These are the same processes that you know already, and first and the foremost thing is to define the problem and research objectives. Once we define, right, there is a management problem, and based on the management problem, after discussing with all the stakeholders of the company, in the company and outside the company, right, I will arrive at my research questions. These research questions will tell us, what's the information is needed to solve the management problem. Then these research questions are converted into the research objectives by adding the propositions, like to understand, to explore, proposition, then followed by an adverb, right? So to understand, to explore, to find out, etc., etc., right? So this, once it has been framed, that's the reason they say this is the engine of any research. The most crucial component of any research is how the company defines the problem correctly. ऐसा ना हो जाए कि मैं बेंगलोर जाना था दिल्ली चले पड़े. That's what it happens if we define the problem wrongly. I wanted to know something, then I end up in doing something. That's very important. That's the reason they say properly defined, the research problem and objectives are like 50% of your research is being solved or done. Once we define the problem correctly and design the objectives, maybe the later stages, I know how to do the research. Then I define the research, the methodology, there's the sampling design. You might say that where do we go, which type of sample I need to pick, who are my customers, what is the sample frame, how much is the sample size. All these questions will be answered based on the research problem what the company defines, or the research objectives what the company defines. Then based on all these things might be the how do I collect the data, whether do I go personally, whether do the the telephone interview, whether I do the email interview, whether I take the online platforms like SurveyMonkey and all, or whether manually I do, so many questions will be answered. Then data is being collected. Finally, after finding out how many customers should be interviewed or how many respondents should be interviewed, then once we receive the data, I think might be we use some of the statistical tools. Maybe it is R or SPSS or the Minitab, right? So to analyze the data and say that okay, we are in the process of completing the research. Then once the data is analyzed, those data is being analyzed. They interpret it for the problems and the objectives, right? So from this, I'll come out with some findings of the research for this problem and those objectives. And finally, I say that yeah, these are the reasons why this problem is existed in the company, or why these objectives are being framed, or these are the information what I am providing to the objectives. And we know that these objectives are a very specific information, right? Very precise, and it clearly says what information is required to solve the research problem. That will be done through the process and interpreting the data. Then finally I write my report, the findings, and give the solutions based on this problem and the research objectives. Yes, friends, that's the end of the today's session. I think we'll continue with the second part of this unit 2 in the next video. Have a great time. Thank you.